You know your life has officially become a country song when you catch your fiancé making out with your cousin in the church parking lot, 2 hours before you're supposed to walk down the aisle together? Yeah, that happened. My name is Knox Lawson. I'm 29 years old, and I manage a Ford dealership in Nashville, Tennessee. I thought I'd seen everything in my line of work. People lying about their credit scores, folks trying to trade in cars held together by duct tape and prayers, the occasional celebrity wannabe demanding a discount because they have 15,000 Instagram followers. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the absolute dumpster fire that was supposed to be my wedding day. 2 months of planning. $25,000 spent. My money, by the way, since Tegan worked part-time at a boutique downtown, and her contribution was mostly creative input and Pinterest boards. 150 guests confirmed. A reception at this gorgeous venue in Franklin with Edison bulbs and that rustic chic vibe that every bride in Tennessee apparently demands. And my fiancé decides that my cousin Wade, the guy who still lives in his mom's basement at 31 and has 3 cars registered in his name that don't actually run, was somehow an upgrade. Let me paint you a picture of Wade. This man's idea of dressing up is putting on his nice flannel, the one without visible stains. His career highlights include getting fired from AutoZone for showing up late too many times, and that one summer he made decent money selling used car parts on Craigslist. His most significant relationship before Tegan was with a woman he met at a truck stop who ghosted him after 3 weeks. This was the guy Tegan chose over me. The excuse she gave me? Wade understands me in a way you never could, Knox. Wade understood her because he spent all day texting her while I was actually working to pay for her dream wedding. And here's the kicker. They were doing this in the family group chat on WhatsApp, in front of everyone. My Aunt Vera was the one who finally showed me, pulling me aside at a family barbecue 3 weeks before the wedding, her phone screen shaking in her hand. "Honey," she said, looking like she'd just witnessed a crime, "have you seen the messages Wade's been sending?" I had not. Turns out they'd been flirting for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. While Tegan was making me drive all over Nashville looking for the perfect lace table runners and taste testing 17 different flavors of cake. While she was sending me links to honeymoon packages in Cancun and debating whether our first dance should be to some Luke Combs song or something by Chris Stapleton. While I was working overtime to make sure we could afford the open bar she insisted we needed because everyone will judge us if we do cash bar, Knox. The messages were, they were bad. Lots of, "I can't stop thinking about you," and "he doesn't appreciate you like I do," and, my personal favorite, "once this wedding is over, we can finally be together." Once this wedding is over. The wedding they were planning to let happen. The wedding where I would stand up there like an absolute fool, promising forever to a woman who was already planning her exit strategy. The audacity. The sheer, mind-blowing audacity. I confronted her that night. She cried. Wade disappeared. Literally blocked my number and avoided every family gathering for 2 weeks like the coward he is. My mom called, crying. My dad called, asking if I wanted him to have a talk with Wade, which in Southern dad speak means something between a stern lecture and voluntary manslaughter. But here's what really got me. Tegan's main concern wasn't that she'd destroyed our relationship or humiliated me in front of our entire family. It was that people would judge her if she was the one to call off the wedding. So I did it for her. Canceled everything. The venue? Called them the next morning. Lost the deposit, but honestly, best money I ever spent. The caterer, the DJ, the photographer, all canceled. The dress? Returned to the bridal shop, where the owner looked at me with such pity I almost started crying right there between the racks of white tulle and lace. The rings? Posted them on Facebook Marketplace. Sold in 3 hours to a guy named Brett who was apparently more confident in his relationship than I'd been in mine. I moved out of our apartment. Well, the apartment I'd been paying for while she focused on the wedding planning and crashed on my buddy Archer's couch for a month. Deleted all the social media posts about the engagement. Sent a mass text to the guest list that just said, "Wedding's off. Long story. I'm fine. Please don't ask questions." Half of them asked questions anyway. And then 6 weeks later, I saw it. A Facebook event invitation. Wade Lawson and Tegan Marlowe request the honor of your presence. They were getting married. In 8 weeks. At the same church where Tegan and I were supposed to get married. Because, and I am not making this up, Tegan's parents had already paid the pastor and it would be rude to cancel on such short notice. The same church. I stared at my phone screen in Archer's living room, a beer halfway to my lips, completely frozen. Archer looked over from the kitchen. "Dude, you good?" "They're getting married," I said, still not quite believing it. "Wade and Tegan, 8 weeks. Same church." Archer walked over, looked at my phone, and let out a low whistle. That's a whole new level of trashy. The wedding invitation had photos of them. Wade in a suit that was somehow both too big and too small. Tegan in that same blissful bride smile she'd practiced in our bathroom mirror for months. The caption read, "When you know, you know. When you know, you know." I'd known Tegan for 4 years, dated for 2, engaged for 8 months. Wade had known her for approximately 6 weeks of secret texting and parking lot makeout sessions. But sure, Tegan, when you know, you know. That's when something shifted in me. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was just done. Done being the guy who got walked over. Done being the responsible one who paid for everything while other people reaped the benefits. Done being the joke of this absolutely ridiculous family drama. I looked at Archer. "I'm going to that wedding." He nearly choked on his beer. "Dude, what?" "I'm going to that wedding," I repeated, feeling a plan start to form in my mind. A plan that was probably stupid, definitely petty, but absolutely necessary. And I'm not going alone. Now you might be thinking, "Knox, buddy, going to your ex's wedding to your cousin sounds like a terrible idea cooked up by someone who's had one too many Jack and Cokes at a downtown Nashville bar." And you'd be absolutely right. Except I wasn't planning to just show up and brood in the back pew like some discount Mr. Darcy. Oh no, I had something much better in mind. See, the thing about Wade that everyone in our family knew but nobody really talked about was that he had a habit of leaving destruction in his wake. Jobs, friendships, relationships, the guy went through them like I went through oil changes at the dealership. And one of those pieces of destruction was sitting right there in my Instagram DMs, sent 3 days after I posted a vague story about interesting family dynamics. "Hey Knox, it's Fallon, Wade's ex. I heard what happened. We should talk." Fallon Reed. I'd seen her exactly twice at family gatherings before Wade suddenly stopped bringing her around. She was a freelance photographer, the kind who shot moody engagement photos for hipster couples in East Nashville and somehow made abandoned warehouses look romantic. She had this alternative chic style, vintage band tees, high-waisted jeans, actually cool tattoos, not the kind Wade had gotten drunk in Printer's Alley. Hers actually meant something. And this pixie cut that somehow worked even though it would make most people look like a medieval peasant. We met for coffee at Barista Parlor in Germantown. She showed up in a leather jacket and sunglasses, looking like she was about to either photograph a wedding or solve a murder. Possibly both. "So," she said, sliding into the booth across from me, not bothering with small talk. "Wade Lawson is the worst decision I ever made, and I've gotten a tattoo in Tijuana." I laughed. First real laugh I'd had in weeks. "That bad?" "Knox, the man ghosted me 3 days before he started dating Tegan. Just disappeared. Blocked me on everything. Wouldn't return my calls. I thought he was dead in a ditch somewhere until my friend saw him at the Bluebird Cafe with some blonde in a sundress, looking like he'd just won the lottery." "That tracks," I said, stirring my coffee. "He blocked me too after I found out. Family gatherings have been real awkward." Fallon leaned forward and I noticed she had this intensity in her eyes, the look of someone who'd been wronged and had been waiting for the perfect moment to even the score. "Here's the thing, though. When Wade ghosted me, he forgot about one tiny detail." "What's that?" "He's still driving my car." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "The Mustang. The red convertible he's always posting photos with on Instagram, acting like he's some kind of successful entrepreneur. That's my car. My name on the title, my insurance, my loan that I'm still paying because his credit score is lower than the temperature in a meat freezer." This was getting better by the second. "And you haven't repossessed it?" "I was going to. But then I saw the wedding announcement." She pulled out her phone, showing me the same Facebook event that had haunted my screen. And I thought, why repossess the car when I can repossess his dignity? I grinned. This woman was speaking my language. "So here's what I'm thinking," Fallon continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, even though the coffee shop was loud enough that nobody could hear us anyway. "You need a date to this wedding. I need to remind Wade that karma doesn't forget. She just takes her time. We show up together, looking absolutely incredible, and we let the truth do the heavy lifting." "The truth?" that he's a deadbeat who steals cars, breaks hearts, and has the moral compass of a shopping cart with a broken wheel. I considered this. On one hand, it was petty. It was juvenile. It was exactly the kind of thing that would make my mother pull me aside at the next family reunion and give me her "I'm not mad, just disappointed" speech. On the other hand, Wade had stolen my fiancée, humiliated me in front of my entire family, and was now having the wedding that I had paid a deposit for. "I'm in," I said, "but we need to do this right. No showing up in jeans and a t-shirt. We're talking full glamour. Make them question their life choices glamour." Fallon's smile could have powered the entire Broadway strip. "Knox Lawson, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Over the next 6 weeks, Fallon and I became partners in what we called Operation Crash and Burn, though we agreed that name was a bit too on the nose and eventually just called it the wedding thing. She did her research. Turns out Wade had told Tegan, and her parents, that he owned an automotive consulting business. Automotive consulting. The man's LinkedIn said he was a vehicle acquisition specialist and independent automotive advisor. In reality, he bought broken-down cars from Craigslist, fixed them just enough to pass inspection, and sold them for a modest profit. Sometimes, when he wasn't too busy playing Fortnite in his mom's basement. "Tegan's dad is paying for this whole wedding," Fallon told me over lunch at Hattie B's, where we were both too nervous to actually eat the hot chicken we'd ordered. "Mr. Marlowe works in finance, real type A personality. Apparently asked Wade about his business model at their engagement dinner. And Wade said what? According to Tegan's sister, who I'm friends with on Instagram and who apparently hates Wade, by the way, he gave this whole speech about disrupting the used car market and leveraging digital platforms for automotive commerce. I nearly choked on my sweet tea. He said that? Wade? The guy who thinks disrupting is what you do to someone's sleep schedule? Direct quote, apparently. Mr. Marlowe was impressed. Wrote Wade a check for $5,000 as a business investment. Oh, this was too good. This was beautiful. This was the kind of karma that made me believe in a just universe. So let me get this straight, I said, counting on my fingers. Wade is driving your car, lying about his career, took investment money from his future father-in-law, stole my fiancée, and is getting married in the church where I was supposed to get married. Don't forget, he also told people you were controlling, and that's why Tegan left you. My jaw dropped. He said what? Tegan's been telling people you were emotionally unavailable and more committed to work than the relationship. Meanwhile, you were working overtime to pay for her dream wedding, while Wade was sending her fire emojis in the family group chat. I put my head in my hands. I can't believe this is my life. Hey, Fallon reached across the table, forcing me to look at her. We're going to walk into that church looking like we just stepped off a red carpet. You're going to wear a suit that makes every person there question why Tegan downgraded to great value when she had name brand. And I'm going to casually mention, very casually, very publicly, that Wade still owes me $847 in car payments and that the Mustang he drove them to their engagement photos in still has my name on the title. You're terrifying, I said, but I was smiling. I'm efficient, she corrected. There's a difference. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mom called. Knox, honey, I heard Wade and Tegan invited you to the wedding. They didn't, Mom. It was a public Facebook event. Well, your Aunt Lorraine says Wade would love for you to come. Show there's no hard feelings. I laughed, actually laughed. Mom, Wade blocked my number. He literally will not speak to me. There are absolutely hard feelings. I just think it would be the bigger person thing to do, sweetheart. Family is family. Mom, family is family until family steals your fiancé and then lies to everyone about why she left. Then family is just people you're stuck seeing at Thanksgiving. She sighed. You're going to do what you want anyway, aren't you? Yes, ma'am. Will you at least wear something nice? Mom, I'm going to look so good it'll make people weep, and that's exactly what I intended to do. The thing about planning petty revenge is that it requires the same attention to detail as planning a wedding, which, ironically, I'd just gotten extremely good at. Fallon and I met up 4 more times over those 6 weeks. We strategized like we were planning a military operation, which in a way we were. Operation Church Parking Lot Redemption didn't have quite the same ring to it, but that's essentially what it was. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking, Fallon said during one of our planning sessions at her apartment in East Nashville, a converted loft above a vintage record store that smelled like coffee and had more plants than a botanical garden. We can't just show up looking good. That's not enough. We need a story, a narrative, something that makes everyone at that wedding think, wait, Knox upgraded. I mean, I definitely upgraded, I said, looking around her apartment. The woman had taste. Actual taste. Not bought everything at Home Goods during a sale taste like Tegan had. Real, curated, this took years to build taste. Sweet talker. She threw a pillow at me. But I'm serious. We need people to believe we're actually together. Not just two bitter exes showing up to ruin a wedding, even though that's exactly what we are. So what do you suggest? Fallon pulled out her phone and started scrolling through Instagram. We post. Not a lot. Just enough. A coffee date here. A photo at Centennial Park there. Maybe one of us at a Predators game. Nothing too obvious, but enough that when we show up at that wedding, people have already seen breadcrumbs. I had to admit, it was genius. You're scary good at this. I'm a photographer, Knox. My entire job is telling stories that make people feel things. Usually it's, oh, look at that couple in love. This time it's, wow, Knox really leveled up, huh? So that's what we did. Over the next 5 weeks, Fallon and I became Instagram official. Not in a cringy, posting every moment way, just subtle. A photo of 2 coffee cups at Crema. A shot of her boots next to my sneakers at the Parthenon. A blurry action shot from a Titans game that Archer actually took because we'd invited him along and he thought the whole thing was hilarious. This is the most entertaining thing I've seen since that guy tried to trade in a flooded Camry and acted shocked when we found catfish in the engine, Archer said, watching Fallon pose us for a photo outside Acme Feed and Seed. There were catfish in the engine? Fallon asked, momentarily distracted from her photographer brain. Nashville's a weird place, I confirmed. The posts worked exactly as planned. Within 2 weeks, I started getting texts. My cousin Mabel. Knox? Who's the girl? She's gorgeous? My buddy from work. Desmond. Bro, when did this happen, and why didn't you tell me you were dating a literal model? My mom. Honey, your Aunt Lorraine just asked me who the punk rock girl is in your Instagram photos. I told her she's a photographer. Is this serious? Should I be excited? Even better? 3 days before the wedding, my Aunt Lorraine called my mom, who immediately called me, to ask if I was bringing a date to Wade's wedding. Mom, I wasn't invited to Wade's wedding. Well, Lorraine says it's an open invitation and that Wade would be happy to see you've moved on. The audacity of this family, I swear. Tell Aunt Lorraine that I have moved on. So moved on that I'm bringing someone who makes Tegan look like a JCPenney clearance rack. My mom gasped. Knox William Lawson, that is rude. But is it wrong? She paused. Well, no, but still. 1 week before the wedding, Fallon showed up at the dealership during my lunch break, practically vibrating with energy. You're not going to believe this, she said, sliding into my office and closing the door. Wade finally paid you for the car? Better, so much better. She pulled out her phone. Tegan's sister, Marley, the one I'm Instagram friends with, just posted a story from their bachelorette weekend in Gatlinburg. Okay? Knox. They rented a cabin. And guess what Wade drove up there? Please say your Mustang. My Mustang. He drove my car that I'm still paying for up to a couple's weekend getaway in the Smoky Mountains. She showed me the photo. Sure enough, there was Wade, leaning against the red Mustang convertible, beer in hand, looking like he'd just discovered what success felt like. The caption read, "My man and his sweet ride." Oh, this is too good, I said, screenshotting the image immediately. This is evidence. It gets better. Marley also posted a video of Wade talking about his business expansion plans and how he's thinking of franchising his automotive consulting model. Franchising? Wade can barely franchise a combo meal at Wendy's. Fallon was grinning like the Cheshire Cat. So here's what I'm thinking. The reception is at that community center in Franklin, right? The one with the big open room and terrible acoustics? Yeah, I remember. Tegan and I looked at it but decided against it because it looked like a VFW hall had a baby with a middle school cafeteria. Perfect. Terrible acoustics means everyone hears everything. And I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, during the reception, I might need to make a phone call, a very public phone call, to my insurance company, about my missing vehicle. I stared at her. You're going to call your insurance company at Wade's wedding? Not the whole thing. Just enough. Loud enough. Yes, hi. I need to report that someone's been driving my car without permission. Red Mustang convertible. Tennessee plates. You know, just checking in on my property. Fallon Reed, you are absolutely diabolical. I prefer justice-oriented. We spent the next hour fine-tuning the plan. The goal wasn't to ruin the wedding. Despite what Wade deserved, I wasn't about to crash a ceremony and object when the pastor asked if anyone had reasons they shouldn't marry. That was movie stuff, and this was real life. No, our goal was simpler. Show up looking incredible, be the most interesting people in the room, and let the truth casually slip out in a way that would make everyone at that wedding question Wade's entire existence. "We need to look like we're not trying too hard," Fallon said, pulling up photos on her laptop. "Like we just naturally look this good and happen to show up at this random family wedding. So what do I wear?" She gave me an appraising look. "You're what, 6'1"? 6'2". Good height, athletic build from working at the dealership. "Okay, here's what we're doing. Navy suit, not black, that's too funeral. Navy, well-fitted. None of this baggy stuff that guys think makes them look professional but actually makes them look like they borrowed their dad's suit. White shirt, no tie. We're going for casually devastating, not job interview. Nice watch, good shoes, Clark Desert boots maybe, or some clean leather Chelsea boots. You've thought about this." "Knox, I photograph weddings for a living. I know exactly what makes people look twice, and you, my friend, are about to make every single person in that church look twice." "And you?" She smiled. "I've got a black dress that I wore to a gallery opening last year. Midi length, side slit, tasteful but memorable. Hair and makeup professionally done. My friend Cleo owes me a favor. Heels that make me your height. We're going to walk in there looking like we got lost on the way to a much better event. The day before the wedding, I got a text from my mom. Lorraine told me Tegan's nervous about you coming tomorrow. I think maybe you should skip it, honey. Don't want any drama." I showed the text to Fallon. We were at her apartment, doing a final wardrobe check. "Tegan's nervous," Fallon read out loud, then laughed. "Good. She should be. My mom wants me to skip it. Are you going to?" I thought about it, about the $25,000 I'd spent, about the humiliation in front of my family, about Wade driving around in Fallon's car, living off lies and stolen moments, about Tegan walking down the same aisle where I was supposed to stand, marrying the guy she'd cheated on me with. "Nah," I said. "I think we're going. You good with that?" Fallon held up the black dress. "Knox, I've been good with this since the moment you messaged me back. Tomorrow, we're not just going to a wedding. We're making a statement. We're showing up, looking incredible, and reminding everyone in that room that actions have consequences. And if Wade freaks out, then Wade freaks out. Not our problem. We're just two people attending a family wedding, being perfectly pleasant, and occasionally mentioning facts about car ownership and business loans." I grinned. "This is either going to be the best decision I've ever made or the worst." "Por qué no los dos?" Fallon said with a wink. That night I barely slept. Not from nerves, from anticipation. Because tomorrow wasn't about revenge. It was about showing up as the person I'd become after everything fell apart. Someone who didn't just take the hit and disappear. Someone who learned to laugh at the absurdity, team up with an equally wronged person, and walk back into the fire wearing a really, really nice suit. Wade Lawson had stolen my fiancée, my dignity, and my deposit on a church venue. Tomorrow I was taking something back. My narrative. The morning of Wade and Tegan's wedding, I woke up at my new apartment, finally off Archer's couch and into a decent one-bedroom in the Gulch, feeling weirdly calm. Like an athlete before the big game. Or a lawyer before closing arguments. Or more accurately, like a guy who was about to walk into his ex's wedding looking better than the groom, the bride, and everyone's unrealistic expectations combined. Fallon texted me at 9 a.m. "Game day. You ready?" "Born ready. You?" "Just got my makeup done. Cleo made me look like I'm about to break hearts and insurance contracts." The wedding was at 2 p.m. We planned to arrive at 2:15. Fashionably late enough to make an entrance, but not so late we'd miss the actual ceremony. The sweet spot of, "Oh wow, they're here," without being disrespectful enough to give Tegan's mom ammunition for later gossip. I put on the navy suit. Fallon had been right. Well-fitted made all the difference. I looked like I'd just walked out of a men's fashion magazine, the kind where guys brood on rooftops and pretend to think about architecture. White shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled to just below my elbows. The Chelsea boots Fallon had insisted on. My grandfather's watch that my dad had given me when I turned 25, hair actually styled instead of my usual. I ran my hands through it and hoped for the best. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Archer called, "Dude, you're actually doing this." "Yep. This is either going to be legendary or a complete disaster." That's what Fallon said. Smart woman. Don't mess it up. I picked up Fallon at noon. She lived on the second floor, and when she walked down the stairs to meet me at my truck, I detailed my F-150 the night before because if we were doing this, we were doing it right. I actually forgot how to speak for a second. The black dress was, it was devastating. Classy, elegant, the kind of thing that made you look twice and then keep looking. Her hair was styled in these soft waves that somehow made the pixie cut look even cooler. Makeup that made her eyes look like she could read your soul and find it mildly entertaining. "You clean up nice, Lawson," she said, climbing into the passenger seat. "You clean up like you're about to make everyone at this wedding question their life choices, Reed. That's the goal." We stopped at Starbucks on the way because showing up with coffee felt like a power move, and rehearsed the plan one more time. "We walk in together," Fallon said. "Sit somewhere visible but not front row. We're not trying to upstage, we're just naturally impossible to ignore. During the reception, we mingle. We're pleasant. We smile. And if anyone asks about us, we're taking things slow but really happy. You good with that? I'm great with that. And if anyone asks about the car situation, you handle it. I'll just stand there looking pretty." She laughed. "This is going to be so good." We arrived at the First Baptist Church in Franklin at exactly 2:17 p.m. The parking lot was packed with cars, mostly trucks and SUVs, very Tennessee, and I could hear organ music drifting from inside. We were definitely late enough to make an entrance. "You ready?" Fallon asked, checking her lipstick in the visor mirror one last time. "Let's do this." We walked up to the church entrance, and I opened the door for her. The church had those old wooden doors that creaked no matter how carefully you opened them, so basically everyone in the back 3 rows turned to look. And their faces, oh man, their faces. My cousin Mabel's jaw literally dropped. My Aunt Vera, Wade's mom, looked like she'd just seen a ghost riding a unicorn. Several of Tegan's friends did that thing where they tried to whisper while staring, which is impossible and always hilarious. We slid into a pew about 6 rows from the back, right side. The ceremony had just started. Tegan's flower girl, some tiny niece in a puffy white dress, was halfway down the aisle throwing petals like she was mad at them. Fallon leaned over and whispered, "3 people are taking photos of us right now." "Good," I whispered back. The ceremony itself was, honestly, it was pretty generic. The pastor, same guy who was supposed to marry Tegan and me, which was its own special kind of awkward, did the whole dearly beloved speech. Wade stood at the altar in a suit that fit him about as well as a cardboard box, sweating through his shirt despite the air conditioning. His best man was his buddy Trent, who I knew from family gatherings and who had the personality of unseasoned chicken. Then Tegan walked down the aisle. She looked fine. Pretty, I guess. The dress was nice, not the one she'd picked out for our wedding, I noticed. This one was simpler. Probably cheaper too, since Wade definitely wasn't paying for it, and Mr. Marlowe probably had limits even for his daughter's happiness. But here's the thing. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing. Just this weird sense of, she really downgraded, didn't she? Tegan's eyes found mine about halfway down the aisle. Her step faltered, actually faltered, like she'd forgotten how walking worked, and her face went through about 17 emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, confusion, anger, something that might have been regret, and then forced smile. Wade followed her gaze, saw me, and I swear the color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. He looked at Tegan, then at me, then at Fallon, then back at me. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but obviously you can't just yell, "What are you doing here in the middle of your own wedding ceremony?" Fallon, bless her soul, gave them a tiny wave. Just her fingers, barely noticeable. Absolutely lethal. The pastor, oblivious to the drama, continued with the ceremony. The vows were standard. Love, honor, cherish, through sickness and health, all that stuff that Wade had proven he didn't understand when he stole another man's fiancée. Tegan stumbled over her words twice, kept glancing back at our pew like she couldn't believe we were real. When the pastor said, "If anyone has reason these 2 should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace," there was this electric moment where the entire church seemed to hold its breath. Fallon squeezed my hand. Not romantically, just solidarity. Like, we could destroy this right now, but we're classier than that. I stayed silent. So did everyone else. Then by the power vested in me by the state of Tennessee, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Wade kissed Tegan. It was awkward. Too much tongue for a church. Several older relatives looked scandalized. And just like that, it was done. They were married. My ex-fiancé and my cousin were officially Mr. and Mrs. Wade Lawson. The church erupted in applause. Well, polite Southern applause, which is just people clapping because it's the expected thing to do, not because they're actually excited. As Wade and Tegan walked back down the aisle, now married, they had to pass our pew. Wade wouldn't make eye contact. Tegan tried to smile, but it came out looking like she was in pain. Behind them, her parents looked confused about why their daughter looked like she'd just seen a horror movie instead of getting married. "Reception?" Fallon whispered as everyone started filing out. "Oh, we're absolutely going to the reception." The community center in Franklin was exactly as depressing as I remembered. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, that specific smell of old carpet and air freshener that every community center in America somehow has. Someone had tried to decorate with string lights and tulle, but it still looked like a high school dance planned by people who had a budget of $47 and a dream. We walked in about 20 minutes after most of the guests had arrived. The room went quiet for just a second, that awkward pause when something unexpected happens, before conversations resumed at a higher, more frantic pitch. "They're definitely talking about us," I said. "Good, let them talk." We grabbed drinks from the cash bar, because of course it was a cash bar, despite Mr. Marlowe paying for everything, and started mingling. Fallon was a natural, charming everyone she talked to. My cousin Mabel practically ambushed us. "Knox! Oh my gosh, you look amazing! And you must be Fallon! I follow you on Instagram. Your photography is stunning." "Thank you so much," Fallon said warmly. "Knox has told me so much about you." "He has?" Mabel looked at me, delighted. "All good things," I assured her. "So how long have you two been—" Mabel gestured between us. "Oh, we're just seeing where things go," Fallon said, touching my arm casually. "But so far it's been really wonderful." Mabel leaned in conspiratorially. "Can I just say, between us, I think Tegan made a huge mistake. Wade is... well, he's Wade." "He's definitely Wade," I agreed diplomatically. We mingled more. My Uncle Sterling asked about work. Tegan's aunt asked Fallon about her photography. Everything was perfectly pleasant and normal, which somehow made it more powerful. We weren't causing a scene. We were just there, looking incredible, being happy, acting like we belonged, which apparently drove Wade absolutely insane. I watched him across the room, standing with Tegan and some of her work friends, constantly glancing over at us. Tegan was talking, but he clearly wasn't listening. His jaw was clenched. He looked like a guy who'd just realized he'd made a terrible mistake but was too proud to admit it. Then came dinner. Rubber chicken, overcooked vegetables, rolls that could double as hockey pucks. We were seated at a table with some of Tegan's extended family who didn't really know the drama and were perfectly friendly. During dinner, Fallon's phone rang. She looked at the screen, then at me, and I saw the tiniest smile. "I'm so sorry," she said to the table. "I have to take this. Work emergency." She stepped away from the table, moving toward the back of the room where it was slightly quieter, but not too quiet. Not so quiet that people couldn't hear. "Hi, yes, this is Fallon Reed," she said into her phone, her voice carrying just enough. "I need to report a vehicle situation. Yes, a red 2019 Mustang convertible. Tennessee plates. It's registered in my name, but someone else has been driving it without permission." I watched Wade's face from across the room. He'd heard. His eyes went wide. He said something to Tegan, who looked confused, then over at Fallon. "The person who's been driving it?" Fallon continued, glancing at her notes like she was reading from a script, which, let's be honest, she basically was. "Wade Lawson. Lawson. Yes, I can confirm he hasn't made a payment in over 3 months. No, ma'am, I did not give him permission to take it to the Smoky Mountains last weekend." Several people had stopped eating. Conversations had died down. Everyone was listening now. Tegan's father, Mr. Marlowe, stood up from the head table. He looked confused, then concerned, then progressively more angry as he processed what he was hearing. Wade looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Yes, I'd like to move forward with... Oh, you know what? Let me call you back. I'm at an event." Fallon hung up, smiled pleasantly, and walked back to our table like nothing had happened. The damage, however, was absolutely done. Within 5 minutes of Fallon's phone call, Mr. Marlowe had pulled Wade aside into the hallway outside the reception hall. Through the window in the door, I could see Wade's hands gesturing frantically, his face red, that universal body language of someone whose lies were catching up to them at terminal velocity. Tegan stood near the cake table, a 3-tier monstrosity from Publix that was already leaning slightly to the left, looking like she was trying to decode a foreign language. Her bridesmaids huddled around her, whispering. "Should we leave?" Fallon asked, sipping her vodka cranberry. "Absolutely not. We haven't even had cake yet." She grinned. "You're a menace. I learned from the best." My cousin Mabel appeared again, this time with her husband Barrett. "Knox, what's happening? Why did Mr. Marlowe look like he was about to commit a felony?" "No idea," I said innocently. "Maybe wedding stress?" "Uh-huh." Mabel looked at Fallon. "That was about the car, wasn't it? The Mustang Wade's always posting about?" Fallon shrugged delicately. "I mean, it is my car. Still making payments on it. Just wanted to check on its status." "At his wedding reception?" Mabel was trying not to laugh. "When else would I have time? I'm very busy." Barrett shook his head, grinning. "Remind me never to get on your bad side." The confrontation in the hallway was escalating. I could see Mr. Marlowe's face getting redder, his finger pointing at Wade's chest. Wade looked like a kid caught cheating on a test, then caught lying about cheating, then caught lying about lying. When they came back into the reception, Mr. Marlowe looked like he'd aged 5 years. Wade looked like he'd seen his entire future collapse in real time. They went straight to Tegan, and all 3 of them disappeared into a corner. "That's our cue," Fallon said. "We've done what we came to do. 1 piece of cake first?" "Knox Lawson, you're really pushing it." "It's Publix cake. I'm not leaving without Publix cake." We got our cake, which was actually pretty good, the one bright spot in the entire reception, and as we were eating it, my Aunt Vera approached. Wade's mom. I braced myself for a lecture about family and forgiveness, and maybe some Bible verses about turning the other cheek. Instead, she looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Knox, honey, I'm sorry." I blinked. "Aunt Vera? Wade's always been difficult. I kept hoping he'd grow out of it. Guess some people just don't." She glanced at Fallon. "You seem like a lovely young woman. Much better than—" She trailed off, looking at Tegan across the room. "Thank you, ma'am," Fallon said kindly. Aunt Vera patted my arm. "You did good coming here today. Showed you're the bigger person. Even if—" She smiled slightly. "Even if you might have also showed them exactly what they lost." After she walked away, Fallon looked at me. "Okay, now we can leave." We walked out of that community center into the late afternoon Tennessee sun, and I felt lighter than I had in months. Like I'd been carrying around this weight, this story of being the guy who got humiliated, got left, got replaced, and I'd finally set it down. "How do you feel?" Fallon asked as we drove back toward Nashville, windows down, some indie band she liked playing through the speakers. "Honestly? Great. Like I just closed a chapter I didn't even know I was still reading. No regrets? About Tegan? Not even a little. About Wade. The guy's his own worst enemy. I don't need to do anything else. He'll sabotage himself just fine." I glanced at her. "What about you?" "I got my closure. And honestly, seeing Wade's face when he realized his whole house of cards was collapsing? Chef's kiss. No notes. We stopped at Hattie B's on the way back, because if you're going to have a dramatic day, you might as well end it with hot chicken, and sat in a booth dissecting everything that had happened. "Think they'll make it?" Fallon asked, referring to Wade and Tegan's marriage. 6 months. Maybe a year if they're stubborn. I give it 4 months. Wade's going to be Wade, and Tegan's going to realize she traded a fully functioning adult for a man-child with a Mustang he doesn't own. Allegedly doesn't own. Allegedly, she agreed, laughing. That was 2 years ago. Wade and Tegan lasted 7 months. Turns out, when your relationship is built on sneaking around and the thrill of doing something wrong, it doesn't translate well to actual adult life. Who knew? They divorced quietly. Both moved away from Nashville, Wade to somewhere in Kentucky, Tegan back to her parents' house for a while before relocating to Atlanta. Mr. Marlowe never got his $5,000 investment back. The Mustang is back in Fallon's garage, fully paid off now. Aunt Vera sends me a Christmas card every year and never mentions Wade in it. Fallon and I dated for about 3 months after the wedding. It was fun, easy, comfortable, but ultimately we realized we made better friends than partners. She's currently seeing a guy named Desmond who treats her like gold and photographs his own weddings, so they understand each other's schedules. We still grab coffee every few weeks and laugh about that time we crashed a wedding like it was a heist movie. As for me, I met Maren 6 months after the wedding disaster. She walked into the dealership looking for a used truck for her landscaping business, had dirt under her fingernails and zero patience for sales tactics, and I was immediately smitten. She's brilliant, funny, calls me out when I'm being ridiculous, and actually understands that sometimes work is just work, not a personal attack on the relationship. We got married last spring. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Fallon photographed it. Archer was my best man. My mom cried happy tears instead of stressed ones. And most importantly, nobody ran off with anyone else's partner before the ceremony. The wedding was at a small venue in East Nashville. Not the same church, obviously. And when the pastor asked if anyone objected, the whole room laughed because everyone there knew the story. Maren squeezed my hand and whispered, "If your cousin shows up, I'm throwing my bouquet at him." He didn't show up. Neither did Tegan. It was perfect. Here's what I learned from the whole mess. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing in disguise. Getting left at the altar, well, almost at the altar, felt like the end of the world. But it was actually just the end of a relationship that would have made me miserable. Tegan wanted someone who'd worship her without question. Wade wanted someone he could impress with lies. They deserved each other, honestly. I wanted someone who saw me as a partner, not a bank account or a supporting character in their story. And I found her, but only after I stopped chasing the wrong person. The revenge was satisfying, sure. Watching Wade squirm while his father-in-law discovered his lies? Seeing Tegan realize she downgraded spectacularly? Chef's kiss, as Fallon would say. But the real victory was building a life I actually wanted instead of the life I thought I was supposed to have. Wade still drives a 1998 Civic with a busted taillight and questionable alignment. I drive a brand new F-150 with all the upgrades and zero regrets. Tegan's on her 3rd New Beginning post on Instagram this year. Maren and I just bought a house with a garage big enough for both our trucks and a yard for the dog we're planning to adopt. The universe has a funny way of working things out. Sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting or scheming or making a scene. It's showing up to your ex's wedding looking like $1,000,000 with someone equally wronged by the same person, letting the truth speak for itself, and then walking away to build something real. Wade got Tegan. I got Maren, a paid-off truck, and a life I actually like waking up to. Make your own conclusions about who won. Spoiler, it was definitely me.